Have you ever felt like you're just constantly fighting against the current? Swimming upstream? Well, today we're going to explore a really fascinating idea, that this isn't just a feeling. It's a real, unseen battle happening all around us and inside us. It's this quiet conflict between all the rules we create to try and make sense of the world and the powerful, natural energy of life itself.
So, let's just kick things off with a huge question. Do we really need all these laws, all these rules, or are they just our attempt to control something that, if we're being honest, we don't fully understand? It's a pretty bold idea, I know, but it cuts right to the heart of what we're looking at today.
And this quote, man, it just nails it. The whole idea is that when we come face to face with a massive, unpredictable flow of life, our first instinct is to try and box it in. We build these containers, rules, regulations, laws. We're basically just trying to make the unknown feel known and the chaotic feel a little more orderly.
All right, so let's really dig into that. We're going to start by questioning this fundamental tension, this tug of war between the artificial rules we've built for ourselves and the natural order that's always flowing, right underneath the surface.
And get this line of thinking even challenges something we hold sacred, justice. Now, the argument isn't that justice is a bad thing. It's that it's a human invention, something designed to make us feel safe. And in that search for safety, we might actually end up building walls that block the very flow of life we're trying to live.
So this brings us to the two big players in this conflict, the two opposing forces. And once you see them side by side, the whole thing becomes crystal clear.
Look at this. It's a stark contrast, right? On one side, you've got our human rules. They're all about control, they're artificial, often super rigid, and they're born from our need to feel safe. But on the other side, you've got this natural flow. It's all about alignment, it's, natural, totally free, and its goal is harmony. These are two completely different ways of operating in the world. And here's the kicker. You can build a dam, but the river doesn't care. It still wants to flow. In this view, life's energy is that river. It doesn't recognize our laws or our expectations. It just moves according to its own nature, freely, powerfully, no matter what little structures we try to build around it.
So, what happens when these two forces smash into each other? What's the actual price we pay for trying to control something that's basically untamable? Let's get into the real and sometimes really personal consequences.
Let's bring this down to earth, to an area we can all relate to, our relationships. We all have these unwritten rules, don't we? Ideas about how a partner should behave or how a friendship is supposed to work. But what happens when those rigid rules clash with the natural, energetic current that exists between two people?
Well, the fallout from fighting that natural flow, it's not pretty. It usually starts with just friction, conflict in our relationships, but that friction can easily escalate into major disruption or even divorce. And the damage doesn't stop there. This constant internal resistance creates a deep emotional imbalance, which, believe it or not, can eventually show up as real physical health problems. It's like a painful domino effect.
This quote just lays it all out on the table. It's a brutal summary of the damage we do to ourselves. By insisting that life has to bend to our wishes, our rules, we end up sabotaging the very things we say we want most: our happiness, our health, and our connections with others. Okay, so that's the problem. It's a big one. But is there a fix? Fortunately, this isn't just about pointing out what's wrong. It also offers a path forward, a way to move from that constant state of conflict to a state of real harmony. And here it is. This is the fundamental shift in perspective. The answer isn't to grip tighter, to try harder, to control everything. It's actually to let go. The idea is that true harmony comes from learning to understand the current and move with it instead of always fighting against it. It's about alignment, not control.
But how in the world do you actually do that? How do you go from a lifetime of trying to control things to a practice of alignment? This is where a really practical method comes into play to help us make that switch.
It's called the puzzle method, and the analogy is perfect, right? Our lives are like a giant puzzle, and so much of our stress comes from trying to jam pieces where they just don't fit. This method is basically a framework to help us take a step back, look at the unique shapes of all the pieces in our life, our job, our health, our relationships, and start putting them together in a way that just feels natural, in a way that clicks.
So the path is broken down into 3 stages. First up is just acknowledgement.
You have to get honest with yourself about where your rigid rules are causing all this friction. Maybe it's a career path you're forcing that's just draining you, or a relationship dynamic that feels like a constant battle. The second step is making a conscious choice. You choose to stop pushing and instead decide to work with the energy you have. This means you shift from trying to force an outcome to just observing what wants to naturally happen. And finally, the third step is to actively rebuild that flow, using this puzzle idea to re-examine the pieces of your life and let them fit together the way they're meant to.
And that brings us to a final thought, just for you. As we wrap this up, the most important question isn't about society's laws, it's about your own. What personal rule, what rigid expectation, what belief that things have to be a certain way is blocking your natural flow right now? It's a pretty powerful question to sit with. Thanks for digging into this with us.